It was a gloomy, rainy day when Tu went out hunting in the dense forest near his village. The rain poured heavily, turning the forest paths into muddy trails and making visibility poor. Tu's hunting trip seemed hopeless as he trudged through the woods, drenched and cold. He felt the chill seep into his bones, each step through the mud an effort. But as he wandered deeper into the forest, he noticed a thin trail of smoke rising in the distance, a sign of shelter and warmth. Curious and seeking refuge from the relentless downpour, Tu made his way towards the smoke. The path led him to a small, humble hut at the edge of a farm. Through the sheets of rain, he saw a figure moving outside. As he got closer, he realized it was a young woman, working diligently despite the weather. Her clothes were soaked, clinging to her slender frame, but she moved with a grace and determination that captivated him. Tu's heart skipped a beat. He wondered if she was single or married. Driven by a mix of curiosity and the need for shelter, he called out, "May I come inside? I am out hunting, but the rain is too heavy to continue." The young woman looked up, her eyes wide with surprise but not alarm. She studied him for a moment before replying, "Please come inside. When the rain stops, you can go." Tu hurried inside the hut, grateful for the warmth and dryness. The interior was modest but cozy, with a small fire crackling in the hearth. The woman offered him a towel to dry off and a seat by the fire. Once inside, he couldn't help but ask, "Are your parents here too?" The woman shook her head, her expression sad. "No, I am here by myself. My name is Mai. I live with my aunt and uncle, but they are away." They continued to talk as the rain drummed against the roof. Tu learned that Mai was an orphan, living with her aunt and uncle who cared for her deeply. She worked tirelessly on the farm to support them. Despite her hardships, she had a gentle and resilient spirit that touched Tu's heart. He felt a connection with her, something that went beyond mere physical attraction. The rain finally stopped, but Tu found himself reluctant to leave. He promised Mai he would return to help her with the farm work and to see her again. True to his word, Tu began visiting the farm regularly. He would arrive early in the morning, bringing with him small gifts and food to share. Together they worked side by side, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Tu admired Mai's dedication and strength. She was not only beautiful but also kind and hardworking. Her laughter was infectious, and her smile could brighten even the darkest days. They shared stories of their lives, dreams, and hopes for the future. It wasn't long before they fell deeply in love. However, their happiness was not without challenges. Tu's parents soon learned about the relationship and disapproved of it. They saw Mai as an unsuitable match for their son because she was an orphan and came from a poor background. They believed Tu deserved someone with a more prestigious family background and better prospects. Despite his parents' objections, Tu couldn't stay away from Mai. He found ways to meet her secretly, sneaking out late at night or early in the morning to be with her. Their love grew in defiance of his parents' wishes, each stolen moment strengthening their bond. They promised each other that no matter what happened, they would find a way to be together. As the new year approached, Tu made a solemn promise to Mai. "After the new year, I will come and take you to be my wife," he vowed, holding her close under the starry sky. Mai's heart swelled with joy. She believed in his promise and looked forward to their future together. She didn't tell Tu that she was already pregnant, wanting to surprise him with the news once they were married. However, fate had other plans. When Tu returned home after the New Year celebrations, His parents informed him that they would be visiting his grandparents the next day. Early in the morning, without time to inform Mai, Tu left with his family, feeling a sense of unease but trusting that he would soon return to her. Upon reaching his Uncle Tong's house, Tu's parents revealed the true reason for the visit. "You have been arranged to marry your cousin Tong's daughter since you were young," his father announced. "Today we are here to fulfill that promise." Tu was devastated but felt powerless against the cultural expectations and his parents' wishes. The weight of tradition and duty pressed heavily on him. He went through with the marriage, his heart breaking for Mai, who was left waiting at the farm, unaware of the betrayal. His new bride, though kind, could not fill the void left by Mai. Days turned into a week, and Mai grew anxious. She hadn't seen or heard from Tu since the new year. Driven by worry, she decided to go to the village and find out what had happened. Her friend Pa, seeing her distress, gently broke the news. "Tu has already married," Pa said, her voice filled with sympathy. Mai's world shattered. She felt a pain so deep it took her breath away. Desperate for answers, she rushed to Tu's house, hoping against hope that there had been some mistake. When she arrived, she was greeted by Tu's parents. "Is Tu home? I need to speak with him," Mai pleaded, her voice trembling. Tu is still visiting his grandparents. They lied, their expressions cold and dismissive. But Mai, seeing through their deceit, insisted, "Please let me see Tu. I already know he got married." At that moment, Tu and his new wife emerged from the garden. Mai's heart broke anew as she saw him. She rushed to him, tears streaming down her face. "Why did you lie to me?" she cried. "You promised to take me as your wife." Tu's parents intervened, their faces stern. "We do not want our son to marry a poor orphan girl like you," they said harshly. The words cut deep, and Mai realized that even if Tu married her, his parents would never accept her. Heartbroken, she whispered, "In 13 days I will come and take you with me too." Tu, torn between his love for Mai and his duty to his family, begged her to forget him. "Please forgive me and move on," he pleaded. "I have to listen to my parents." Mai's eyes filled with sorrow. "Forget about our love. What about our unborn child? You promised to love me until my last breath," she said, her voice trembling. "I will see you in 13 days." Mai left Tu's house, her heart shattered and her spirit broken. The weight of betrayal pressed down on her like a crushing force. Her tears mixed with the rain as she walked back to the farm, each step heavier than the last. Her mind raced with thoughts of what could have been, of the life she had dreamed of with Tu. But now those dreams were ashes, blown away by the cruel winds of reality. On her way back, she noticed a cluster of poisonous plants growing by the roadside. These were plants she had been warned about as a child, plants that could bring death with just a few bites. In her despair, Mai saw them as a means to end her suffering. She reached down, picked a handful of the sharp, bitter leaves, and tucked them into her pouch. When she arrived back at the farm, she went straight to her room, her mind made up. She sat on her bed, clutching the plants tightly. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered to herself, "If I cannot be with Tu in this life, then perhaps in the next." With that, she chewed the leaves, the bitterness spreading through her mouth and down her throat. The poison acted quickly, and Mai lay down, feeling the life slip away from her. 3 days later, her aunt and uncle went to check on her, worried by her absence. They found her lifeless body on the bed, her face serene despite the tragic end. The village mourned her death, and a small, somber funeral was held. Mai's story spread quickly, a tale of love and heartbreak that touched everyone who heard it. As her funeral concluded, the 13th day approached. The villagers felt an eerie sense of foreboding, and an unnatural chill seemed to settle over the village. The air felt heavy, and the nights grew colder, filled with an unspoken dread. On the 13th night after Mai's death, Tu's torment began. He had just returned from a long day, trying to keep his mind off the lingering guilt he felt over Mai. As he drifted into an uneasy sleep, Mai's spirit visited him in his dreams. She appeared as the beautiful, loving woman he had fallen in love with, her presence both comforting and terrifying. "Tu," she whispered, her voice echoing through the dream, "I have come to take you to live with me and our son." Tu woke up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding in his chest. He dismissed the dream as a product of his guilt and grief, but the next night the dream repeated. Mai's ghostly figure grew more persistent, appearing each night, her voice more insistent. "You must come with me," she urged. "We belong together." Tu's sleep became a battleground. He tried to resist, explaining that he was a married man now, but Mai's spirit grew angry. Her once gentle demeanor turned menacing, her eyes burning with a cold fire. She began to appear not just in his dreams, but in mirrors, shadows, and even in the corners of his home. Her presence was always accompanied by a chilling cold that made the hairs on his neck stand up. Tu's health began to deteriorate rapidly. He grew pale and weak, tormented by Mai's ghostly presence. He stopped eating and sleeping, his eyes hollow and haunted. His family, unaware of the true cause, watched helplessly as he slipped further into madness. He spoke of seeing Mai, of feeling her cold touch, and hearing her whisper his name in the dead of night. Desperate, his parents called shamans and spiritual healers. They performed rituals and cleansing ceremonies, burning incense and chanting prayers to ward off the evil spirit. They sprinkled holy water around the house and on Tu, but nothing seemed to work. Mai's spirit was relentless, her fury driving Tu to the brink of insanity. Every night she appeared to him, her form shifting between the beautiful woman he had loved and a terrifying specter of vengeance. She would stand at the foot of his bed, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light, her voice a mix of sorrow and rage. "Tu, come with me," she would say. "Our child awaits." 7 days after the haunting began, Tu fell gravely ill. His condition worsened each day, his body growing weaker as Mai's spirit drained his life force. He was plagued by fever and chills, his mind slipping further into the darkness. He knew his time was running out, and the fear of Mai's vengeance consumed him. On the 7th night of his illness, Tu lay on his deathbed, surrounded by his family. His parents, distraught and guilt-ridden, could do nothing but watch as their son slipped away. Tu's breath came in ragged gasps, his skin pale and clammy. He could feel Mai's presence, stronger than ever. In his final moments, Mai's spirit appeared for the last time. She stood by his bedside, her face soft with a sorrowful smile. "It is time, Tu," she said softly. "Come with me." Tu, too weak to resist, felt his soul being pulled from his body. As his spirit left, he saw Mai, beautiful and radiant, holding their unborn child. She smiled, the bitterness and sorrow replaced by a peaceful acceptance. "We will be together now," she whispered, and Tu felt a strange sense of relief and love wash over him. His lifeless body was discovered the next morning. His parents, heartbroken and guilt-ridden, arranged for his funeral. The village mourned the loss of a young man whose life had been cut short by a love that transcended death. Tu's story became a haunting reminder of the power of love and the consequences of betrayal.